Good Wednesday morning. Good to have you. Hope you have had a good week to this point. Maybe you are getting back on somewhat of a schedule. Those of you who aren't from around here, you got to understand we in the South do things a lot differently. Whenever there's a snowstorm predicted, just use the word predicted. For whatever reason, bread I can understand, and milk I cannot understand. But bread and milk are the two staple items that will be gone in a grocery store instantly. And sheer panic over anything in bread and milk. I don't understand the milk. If you lose your power, that one doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, and then the other thing down here is that we do not possess near the amount of equipment to get some of this stuff out of here, and so it takes a while. And unfortunately, this most recent one was really mostly all ice, and so I've been at work here last, we started Sunday night and then all day Monday and all day Tuesday, chipping away ice in parking lots. And it's been challenging. So this one has not been a snow event, to say the least. I do expect church to be on tonight. I've seen pictures of the parking lot. I think everything should be good. I'll verify all that, send out an email. But those who just join us online, we should be fine. I will throw out this caution. If your driveway is a sheet of ice, please do not try to venture out, okay? We have online platforms for a reason, and I think that you should take advantage of that. So I know some of the secondary roads are still not all that grand in places. For the most part, a lot of it's been cleared, but we still have some issues. And so if you're uncomfortable with it, by all means, do not push it. Please do not go skating down your driveway. And what is white outside is frozen. And so, anyway, not much you can do with ice. That's been the joys of it all. Well, let's get into our study this morning in 2 Peter chapter number 1. And I love verse 3 of where we're going to begin here this morning. Verse 3 has been such an encouragement to me because oftentimes Satan will lead me to believing that I cannot be victorious, I cannot do what's right, I cannot get over this, I cannot do, and so forth. 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3 is fundamental to our Christian life because that is the verse that's going to tell us that we have everything that is necessary to live a godly life. So we can draw some conclusions from that, but one of the conclusions that I oftentimes draw is that then the only limitations to godliness are self-imposed. In other words, I determine how godly I want to be. And I'm the one that's going to set those limits. So it is not, as many times we feel, that, well, I just can't get beyond this particular sin. Instead, the reality is that I have been given every resource necessary, as we will see here in just a moment, to be able to live a godly life. I have, as the title suggests to our study this morning, I have been divinely enabled. 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3. Keep this verse in mind because I'm telling you it's a great encouragement when we're facing temptation, when we're facing the struggles that we oftentimes face here in our Christian life. Verse number 3 tells us, according as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue. Okay, so that little phrase, according as, right here as it begins, I think can also be understood this way, because his divine power. God's power has given unto us all things. There's your emphasis, has given us all things that pertain, that are going to produce life and godliness. If we were to use maybe somewhat of a different analogy, we might say that God has given us every tool in our toolbox necessary to be able to live a godly life. He's given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness. Now, the issue then is not whether or not I have the ability. The question is, am I willing to utilize the tools God has given me? And unfortunately, sometimes the answer ends up being no, I'd rather live in defeat, or I'd rather continue on my own way. And we fail to understand the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is the same power that has given me everything necessary to live a godly life. That is such a tremendous encouragement and such a tremendous challenge for me to wrap my mind around. Not that I can comprehend it all, but that I can utilize all of the resources that I have. Now, this uh, all this goes through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue. Keep in mind this word knowledge. Here it is again. We've already talked about this a little bit yesterday. If you missed the devotional, it should be online. But if you go and look and say, okay, God has given me everything necessary. How do I utilize? How do I develop those tools? I have to come to a greater knowledge of God. And the more that I come to a greater knowledge of God, the more victorious that I'm going to be. If you've ever noticed this in your Christian life, I have in mind that whenever I am really struggling, my devotional life is probably not where it needs to be. And by the way, I don't mean by that just advancing a bookmark in a text. I mean by that engaging the text, having my mind seeking to understand it. It might be a few verses, it might be a longer chapter, it might be all sorts of different things, but if I don't understand it, it's not going to benefit me. And so I'm constantly growing in my knowledge of God, and as I'm doing so, I'm availing myself of the various tools that God has given me. I don't have to live a defeated life. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. We're reminded in 1 John, the Holy Spirit of God empowers me, dwells within me, and enables me to be able to live a victorious life. God's given me every tool that I need. The question is, am I going to reach into that toolbox and avail myself of those tools that God has given me? He's called us to glory and virtue. It is more than likely this knowledge of God and this one who has called us. This is the expectation to glory and virtue. It could also be through glory and virtue, suggesting that this is going to be his glory, the praise that is due him. But the point that we see in verse 3 is that God has enabled us. Okay, let's move on to verse 4. Whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises. That word whereby, it's got to go back to something. Now, the problem is grammatically, it can't go back to glory and virtue. That's what we would normally think, but it can't do that. It could go back to God's power, and that seems to me to fit. It could also go back to the whole concept of verse number 3. It is through this knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue that we have been given these great and precious promises. It's taking us and moving us, kind of reorienting our life and moving our perspective from focusing here to focusing on what it is that God has for us. God has given us great and exceeding great and precious promises. These are promises that are of high value. There is an exceeding greatness about them, almost an excessive amount, if we might phrase it that way. And these are the means by which I become a partaker of the divine nature. Now, there's a reality that one day I am going to be like him, according to 1 John chapter 3, because I will see him as he is. I will then receive my glorified body. Now, even then, I am still not going to be God, okay? But I am going to be a partaker of his divine nature. But I think that that is more than just speaking of a future sense, but also speaking of a present reality for my life. I can today become more of a partaker of God's divine nature. In other words, I can become increasingly more godly, and that is what I need to strive to do. Having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust, those evil desires, when did I escape that corruption? Well, I did at the moment I got saved. I turned my back on the world, and there's nothing in that for me. And so, with that mindset, then I need to be approaching my Christian life, and I need to be approaching today with a mindset that says, okay, I need to live a life that is going to glorify God. God's given me every resource that I need. I don't have to be falling prey to temptation and sin. I can live a godly life. It is also either by means of God's power or through the knowledge of him that's called us to glory and virtue that I am the recipient of these great and precious promises in order that I might become a partaker of his divine nature, a sharer of his of godliness. And really, what needs to happen is when people look at me, they see a life that honors and glorifies God. I'm just going to say we need to be very careful with how we conduct ourselves. We need to be careful with how we conduct ourselves online, our various media platforms as well. And sometimes we get into these things where we can just say and do whatever we want to say and do. And there's some realities behind this that say, you know what, I need to live a godly life because it may very well be that how I chose to act is actually going to be detrimental to someone in their spiritual life. Let's not live that kind of a life. We've got every tool we need that's necessary for a life in godliness. Let's strive to bring honor and glory to Him. Appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great day today. I'll send out an email again later on. I expect everything to be on normal schedule. Again, if you don't feel safe, that's fine. Join us online, and online should get started around 7:30 tonight or so. And we'll look forward to our study in the book of Psalms. All right. Appreciate you guys. Lord bless. And I'll see you either tonight, back here in the morning. God bless.